The Middle Ages knew no mercy. Justice was not written in parchment and ink, nor weighed with scales of fairness. It was carved instead in flesh and bone, etched into the screams of the dying, burned into the memories of those forced to watch. To be condemned was not merely to die. It was to be unmade, stripped of dignity, broken into fragments, offered up as warning. Tower Hill rises before us, not as a seat of law, but as a theater of fear. The gallows stand like grim monuments, timber-stained with the dark memory of countless lives. The stones beneath are slick with old blood, washed by rain but never cleansed. Here, London learns its lessons not from books or sermons, but from the spectacle of agony. Listen, and you will hear it still, the echoes of the condemned. A thief dragged forward, his shirt torn away. The lash cracks, again, until his back is no longer flesh, but a map of red welts, torn open for the crowd's delight. His body shudders, yet the punishment does not end with pain. It ends only when the watching eyes have been satisfied, when the message has been carved deep enough into the souls of those who stand below the scaffold. A woman follows. Her crime, petty theft, or perhaps a whispered heresy, no one remembers. But the iron remembers. Heated until it glows, it is pressed against her skin. A hiss, a scream, the stench of burning flesh that makes even the hardest men turn away for a breath. She collapses, her mark forever seared, her life forever branded with shame. The crowd murmurs, some in pity, some in approval, but all are bound together by fear. And then, the rebel. Stripped, chained, laid upon the rack. The wheel turns. Joints stretch, bones strain, muscles tear like parchment pulled too far. He howls until voice becomes nothing but a broken croak. The executioner is patient. He turns the wheel again. The crack of bone resounds louder than the cries. Limbs that once lifted sword and banner now dangle uselessly, twisted and ruined. By the time he is pulled from the frame, he is less a man than a lesson. Every punishment is public. Every scream is a warning. This is the creed of the age. Suffering is law, cruelty is order, death is spectacle. And into this world steps Thomas Usk. The lens finds him in the press of the crowd. Shackled in chains, he is dragged through the filth of London's narrow streets. Mud and refuse cling to his garments. The iron bites his wrists. His face is pale, not from cowardice, but from knowledge. He has sat in courts. He has seen sentences passed. He has watched others led to this same fate. He knows too well what awaits him. Children whisper his name, though not with reverence. For them, he is a cautionary tale. Mothers pull their little ones closer, saying, "Look well. This is what happens to traitors." Men avert their eyes not out of mercy, but because they see in him the reflection of their own mortality. The guards shove him forward without gentleness. He stumbles, rises, stumbles again. Their hands are rough, their voices cold. There will be no kindness granted, for kindness has no place here. At last they thrust him into a cell, a pit of stone and darkness. The torchlight flickers, throwing shadows across damp walls. The smell of mold, sweat, and despair suffocates the air. The iron door slams shut. Its echo rolls down the passage like a death knell. Outside, the murmur of the gathering crowd swells with anticipation. For them, tomorrow is not tragedy, it is theater. They will rise early, jostle for place, push forward to see better. Some will bring children, some will bring wives, some will come only to jeer. All will come to watch a man unmade. Inside, Usk sits alone. The flicker of the torch dances across his face. Eyes hollow, cheeks drawn, lips tight. Haunted, yes. Resigned, perhaps, but not yet broken. He knows the morning will strip him of body and name. Yet for this moment, this fleeting night, he remains whole. On the pale curve of his face, on the chains that hold him, on the silence that wraps around him like a shroud. Outside, the city prepares for spectacle. Inside, a man waits for death. In this age of cruelty, the law does not merely kill, it devours. The wheel of fortune turns swiftly in the city of London. One year, a man may dine beside nobles and whisper counsel into the ears of power. The next he is cast into the shadows, his name spat like venom. Such is the fate of Thomas Usk, once a figure of authority, once a trusted official of the crown's own city, now marked as prey. The chamber of council is thick with tension. Torchlight flickers across carved beams, casting long shadows that seem to lean in, listening. Robes rustle, voices rise and fall like the tide, and at the heart of it stands Usk. His words are bold, his tone unyielding. He argues with the fervor of a man convinced of his righteousness. Yet even as his voice carries, other voices, quieter, more dangerous, coil around him like snakes. Whispers of betrayal. Accusations half-formed, circling him like vultures waiting for the final collapse. For Usk has chosen poorly. In an age where alliances are fragile, where loyalty is measured not in years but in moments, he has aligned himself with a faction that has fallen from grace. His friends vanish like smoke. His allies avert their eyes, and the walls that once echoed with his counsel now echo with his condemnation. Then comes the parchment, heavy, sealed with the crimson wax of the crown, unrolled with solemn hands. The words are read aloud, each syllable a hammer blow. Thomas Usk, guilty of treason, sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. The hall falls into silence, no reprieve, no mercy. Every man present knows what those words mean. Not death alone, but humiliation. Not merely the end of a life, but the unmaking of a body, a name, a legacy. The greatest punishment England can devise, reserved for traitors, rebels, those who dare stand against the sovereign order. Outside, the city stirs. Rumor moves faster than horse or herald. Whispers leap from tavern to tavern, from market stall to market stall. The butcher mutters it as he sharpens his blade. The fishwife breathes it between shouts. The beggar at the roadside croaks it to any who will listen. Thomas Usk, traitor. Some spit at the mention of his name. Let him hang. Let his limbs feed the crows to them. Treason is a rot that must be cut away, a disease that must be burned out with fire and iron. Others, quieter, shake their heads. It is not justice, they murmur. It is politics. They know that power devours its own, that guilt is not always found in deed, but in the shifting sands of loyalty. Yet these words are spoken softly, behind closed doors, for to defend a condemned man is to invite suspicion upon oneself. In the markets, mothers gather their children close. They lean low, whispering warnings. Look well, child. This is what happens to those who cross the crown. The lesson is clear. Ambition is dangerous, speech is perilous, defiance is fatal. Better to bend, better to remain silent than to risk the scaffold. And still the city hungers. London thrives on spectacle, and none is greater than the fall of the mighty. Tomorrow they will gather in their thousands. Merchants, peasants, nobles cloaked in shadow, priests with lips pressed tight, all will come. Some to mock, some to weep, some to watch in grim fascination. They will crane their necks, jostle for place, eager to see not just a man's death, but the destruction of his very body. The charge of treason is more than law. It is theater, and Thomas Usk has been cast as its leading actor. Once he signed documents with the authority of office, now his signature is his own flesh, soon to be carved apart, scattered to the winds. The city waits, the scaffold waits, and Thomas Usk, once trusted, now abandoned, waits too. Voice fades, heavy and deliberate. In London, loyalty is but a coin, spent and forgotten. And treason is the price paid when the coin runs out. Night descends upon London like a shroud, heavy and merciless. Within the cold belly of the tower, Thomas Usk sits in darkness, his fate already sealed by the ink of royal decree. The city sleeps uneasily beyond the walls, but within his narrow cell there is no rest, no dream, only the slow passage of hours that lead to the gallows. He bends over a scrap of parchment, the last mercy granted to a man marked for death. His hand trembles as he writes, though once it had moved with certainty across council decrees and charters of law. Now each stroke is hesitant, broken by chains that clatter when his quill moves too far. He writes not to plead for life, Such pleas are dust, scattered and ignored. But to leave behind something more fragile, more enduring, the truth of his heart. He writes of faith. He writes of weakness. He writes of hope that someone someday might see him not as traitor, but as man. For what is treason but a word on the lips of victors? What is guilt but the judgment of the powerful? In his lines he lays bare his fear, his sorrow, his humanity. He cannot choose his death, but perhaps he can shape the memory that lingers after. Beyond the cell, the night is not silent. He hears it clearly, the hammering of wood, the creak of beams set in place. The scaffold rises plank by plank, built not in daylight but in shadow, as though even the workers fear to look too closely at what they create. Each thud of the mallet is a drumbeat of doom, each strike a countdown to his undoing. He flinches at the sound, for it is not mere construction. It is the building of his grave, the stage upon which his suffering will be performed before the eyes of a city. The torchlight wavers across the stone, casting his shadow long against the wall. He watches his own outline tremble, a ghost already forming before the flesh is gone. In the silence between hammer strikes, he hears his heartbeat, slow, heavy, each pulse reminding him that time still remains, though not much. His hands, once steady, betray him now. These were the hands that held ink and seal, hands that drafted the laws of London, hands that argued in defense of reason. They were the hands of an official, the hands of a man who believed in order. Now they are bound in iron, chained to the wall, trembling with fear, knowing they will soon be severed, scattered, nailed upon gates as a warning to others. He looks down at them, studying the veins, the scars, the curve of his fingers, as though trying to memorize what will soon be lost. They are still his for this last night, still warm, still whole. By morning, they will be nothing but fragments in the dust. The air in the cell is damp, thick with the scent of stone and mildew. The flame sputters, and for a moment he is left in darkness. He closes his eyes not to sleep, but to remember. Faces flicker in the black. Friends long gone, a city he once served, the council chamber where he spoke with fire. All of it seems distant now, swallowed by the certainty of dawn. The hammering resumes. The scaffold nears completion. The city prepares for spectacle. And Thomas Usk, alone in his cell, prepares for death. This is the long night before. A night not of rest, but of reckoning. A night when a man writes not for pardon, but for memory. When every heartbeat, every strike of the hammer, every tremor of the hand is a farewell. Tomorrow he will be unmade. But tonight he is still a man. Dawn breaks, not with light, but with dread. The first rays of sun crawl over London's rooftops, pale and cold, as though even the heavens recoil from what the day will bring. A bell tolls in the distance, its iron voice cutting through the mist, summoning a city to witness cruelty dressed as justice. The streets fill quickly. Thousands press forward, drawn not by duty, but by morbid hunger. Men shove for vantage. Women clutch their children close. Vendors cry out with bread and ale, as if this were a fair. The air is thick with breath and murmur, anticipation rising like smoke before a storm. This is no private punishment. It is theater, and London craves its stage. The scaffold looms above them all, stark and unyielding, a timber gallows built with purpose. Its beams are still raw from the axe, its ropes coiled like serpents waiting to strike. It towers over the square like a grim altar, demanding sacrifice. At its foot stands the hangman, face expressionless, hands steady with the ease of long practice. Around him gather guards in steel, their halberds glinting, keeping order, though none dare challenge what is to unfold. Then comes the prisoner. Thomas Usk is dragged into the light, his chains clattering against the stones. His face is pale, yet his steps do not falter entirely. The crowd surges, voices rising. Some hurl curses, some spit, some stand silent, watching with eyes that cannot look away. He ascends the wooden steps, forced upward by rough hands, each tread echoing like a drumbeat of doom. At the top, the noose awaits. The rope, frayed yet strong, is slipped around his neck. Its fibers scrape his skin, tightening with the weight of inevitability. The hangman adjusts it with practiced indifference, as though fastening a simple knot. For Usk, it is the embrace of death itself. The bell tolls once more. The crowd hushes, the air thick, still, suffocating. All eyes fix upon him, upon the rope, upon the lever that will cast him into torment. The hangman pulls. Usk's body jerks violently, suspended in midair. His legs kick, straining against empty air. The rope bites deep, crushing his windpipe. His breath is strangled into silence. Eyes bulge, tongue swells grotesquely. His face darkens as blood surges where air is denied. The sound is not of words, but of choking. Raw, guttural, the voice of life being crushed. The crowd watches transfixed. Some cheer, others blanch. Children cry. Mothers look away. Men mutter prayers under their breath, uncertain whether for the condemned or for themselves. For this is not simply death, it is spectacle, pain made visible for all to learn by. Usk writhes, body twisting, limbs flailing in futile defiance of the rope's grip. The scaffold creaks with his struggle. He is moments from the blackness of release, moments from the mercy of silence. But mercy is not his fate. The hangman's hand rises. The rope is cut. Usk falls in a heap, gasping, his lungs clawing for air, his chest heaving like a bellows. He is not dead, not yet. His body, bruised and broken, still clings to breath, though every nerve screams with fire. Gasps ripple through the crowd. A murmur spreads, uneasy, electric. They know the ritual. They know this is but the beginning. Hanging is not the end, but the prelude. The rope is no execution. It is an introduction, a passage into horrors yet to come. They had promised not death, but unmaking. And so Thomas Usk hung not for release, but for spectacle. In the eyes of the crown, death was too swift. His body would be broken piece by piece, his spirit ground into dust, until nothing remained but fear. The scaffold looms still, silent but waiting. The crowd leans forward, hearts pounding, for they sense what comes next. This was not the end. It was the cruel opening of a darker play. The rope has done its work, but not its full cruelty. Thomas Usk lies broken, his breath ragged, his body bruised, yet still alive. And in this age, to live beyond the hanging is no mercy. It is but the doorway to torment. The executioner steps forward. His face is set, neither cruel nor kind, but blank with the hardness of long familiarity. In his hand glints the blade, honed for one purpose. The crowd stirs uneasily, their hunger for spectacle battling against their instinct to recoil. They know what comes next, they have seen it before, and yet each time it shakes them to their core. Usk is dragged to the block. He gasps, half-conscious, his body trembling, as though each breath is torn from him by unseen hands. Chains clatter as he is forced down, his cheek pressed against the timber, slick with the stains of others before him. His eyes, wide and clouded with pain, stare at nothing, yet seem to see everything: memory, terror, inevitability. The knife descends. With one brutal plunge, steel parts flesh. His belly splits open, a wound so deep that the air itself seems to cry out. Steam rises in the chill morning, a grotesque offering to the waiting sky. The stench of blood and bile fills the square, sharp and metallic, heavy enough to choke. The crowd recoils as one, a gasp rippling through their ranks. Hands rise to mouths, faces turn pale, yet none turn away. Curiosity is stronger than disgust. Horror binds their eyes open. The executioner reaches into the wound, his arm vanishing into the cavity of a still living man. Fingers grasp, tug, pull free what should never see the light of day. Entrails spill across the timber, glistening ropes of life, slick and steaming. They fall with a sickening sound, slapping against the wood, sliding toward the edge. Some in the crowd retch, some cover their children's eyes, but others, too many, lean closer, compelled to witness every detail. Then with ritual slowness, the executioner raises high the organs torn from Usk's body. They hang glistening in the sun, crimson and quivering, displayed not only as proof of his mortality, but as spectacle, as theater. Blood drips from his hand, spatters upon the scaffold, falling in fat drops that stain the planks dark. This is not justice. It is ceremony, a grotesque sacrament meant to feed fear. Usk screams once. It is no human cry, no word, no curse, but a raw, ragged tearing of sound, ripped from the deepest core of his being. It shreds the silence, shatters the hearts of those who hear it. Then it falters, breaks, dies away into nothing. His throat cannot carry more. His body convulses, trembling with agony beyond expression, then slackens as though life itself withdraws in horror from the torment inflicted upon it. And yet he is not spared. For in this punishment, death is not the goal. Death is too swift, too merciful. The aim is spectacle, to prolong suffering until the very idea of treason is drowned in the blood of the traitor. And so they keep him there, torn, broken, displayed as though his body were a text to be read by the crowd. Every cut a sentence, every drop of blood a lesson. The people watch, silent now. Their jeers have died. Their laughter is gone. In its place hangs a heavy dread, as though each of them feels the rope about their own throat, the blade against their own belly. For they see in Usk not just a traitor, but the terrible fragility of every life under the crown's shadow. In this moment, Thomas Usk ceased to be a man. He became a message, a body unmade, an agony displayed, a warning carved into flesh so that fear might endure long after breath was gone. The scaffold is not yet finished with him. Though his belly has been opened, though his voice has been broken, though his body already lies on the edge of death, the cruelest act remains. For in the law of treason, a man must not only die, he must be destroyed. Ropes are brought forward, coarse hemp thick as a man's wrist. They are tied with methodical care to his arms and legs, binding him not to mercy, but to beasts of burden. 4 horses stand restless at the edges of the scaffold, their flanks steaming, their eyes rolling white. They sense the tension, smell the blood, feel the whips in the hands of their masters. The crowd surges forward, drawn by morbid expectation. They know this punishment. They have heard of it whispered, but few have seen it in full. Now they will. The hangman raises his arm. The whips crack. The horses lunge. Ropes snap taut. Usk's body jerks violently, stretched like timber bent beyond its nature. He convulses, gasping, though no words can escape his ruined throat. His joints strain, his bones grind, his shoulders wrench from their sockets. The scaffold groans with the force, echoing the agony that tears through him. The whips crack again. The horses pull harder, straining against their harnesses, muscles rippling, hooves tearing at the earth. Usk's body is pulled to its breaking point, limbs drawn wide, chest heaving, tendons taut as bowstrings. Then comes the sound, the wet, sickening tear as flesh yields, as bone splinters, as the human frame is undone. His arms rip free, his legs are torn apart. Fragments of what was once a man are scattered across the scaffold. The ropes recoil, dangling bloody remnants. The crowd erupts. Some cheer, wild and exultant, as though witnessing justice in its most glorious form. Others faint, collapsing into the press of bodies, unable to endure the sight. Many cross themselves, muttering hurried prayers, desperate to ward away the terror that clings to the soul. For though this is a spectacle of power, it is also a glimpse of hell. And still, it is not done. The executioner, steady and precise, lifts his blade one final time. With a single stroke, Thomas Usk's head is severed from his body. It is raised high, dripping, its lifeless gaze cast over the throng. Blood falls in steady drops, pattering upon the boards like rain. The crowd gasps again, caught between awe and horror. The traitor is gone. The lesson remains. His limbs, his head, his very flesh are gathered, divided, sent forth to the gates of London. There they will be nailed upon spikes displayed to all who pass. Each fragment will be a sentinel of fear, a mute warning carved in blood and sinew. The city will not forget, not because of chronicles, not because of sermons, but because the streets themselves will bear the fragments of his unmaking. And yet, for all their cruelty, for all their desire to erase him, something lingers. In the eyes of those who watched, in the whispers that ripple through alleys and taverns, Thomas Usk endures. Not as a hero, not in triumph, not in honor, but as memory, as shadow, as the embodiment of cruelty itself. They thought to erase him, to scatter him in fragments, to make of his body a warning and of his name a curse. Yet in the whispers of the city, in the fearful eyes of those who watched, Thomas Usk endured. Not in triumph, not in honor, but in the memory of cruelty, carved forever into the soul of England.